Hi, I'm Jennifer Douglas, and I'd like to discuss a recent scientific article that came out that was looking at the relationship between fungi on the skin and melanoma cells. And this is really fascinating because the researchers in this study found a relationship between fungi on the skin interacting with melanoma cells, and they had previously not seen or understood that relationship. Now, in that study, they're speculating on the potential purpose for those fungi interacting with the melanoma cells, and they're really not sure. One hypothesis they have is that the fungi is actually a mechanism by which melanoma might spread, but they did say that they did not believe that the fungi had anything to do with melanoma cells replicating. And again, kind of the big picture was a previously unknown relationship between these fungi on the skin and these melanoma cells. So let's look at what is melanoma through the lens of German new medicine, and why might this relationship with the fungi be important. So in GNM, we see that every symptom is a meaningful biological adaptation in our tissue that helps us to survive from a distressing event. And each type of tissue and organ in the body is linked with a specific brain relay, and that in turn, that brain relay is part of a layer of the brain that is a specific embryological germ layer. So let me slow this down for a moment. In the case of melanoma, what we're dealing with is the dermis, or the underlayer of the skin. The dermis is controlled from a brain relay in our cerebellum, and the cerebellum is part of an older germ layer we have called the old mesoderm. It is one of our more primitive survival layers of our brain's embryological development in humans. Now, the types of distressing events or conflict shocks that are related to the cerebellum and to this lower layer of the skin, the dermis, are specifically about protection from attack, or feeling soiled or disfigured, feeling dirty at that place. So in this case, if there is some distressing event that catches us off guard, that it makes us feel isolated in the moment, and our subconscious interprets this as an attack or feeling soiled or disfigured at that place, then it signals our brain in the cerebellum and the dermis, this lower layer of the skin, at a specific place to initiate this protection program. There is a two-phase pattern in German new medicine with all tissue adaptations. The first phase is the active conflict phase, when we are actively dealing with that distressing event that occurred. And with this dermis layer of the skin, during the active conflict phase, the skin is actually growing more cells in that place. It's building us a literal shield to protect us from that feeling of being attacked or being disfigured at that location. So the biological purpose is actually protection. It's adding on skin cells in that place in order to protect us from what we've perceived as a danger of attack or of disfigurement or of feeling dirty. Once we have resolved that conflict, either by a change in situation or emotional resolution, then in GNM, we have fungi and bacteria that come in and break down those extra cells to restore our dermis back to the state it was previously in. Now, this program of the dermis has many different manifestations. It is the same program that controls acne. So a pimple is actually kind of a small scale, a small version of maybe a very brief conflict that pops up. Our skin builds up this little layer of cells, which we don't notice, but then when it goes into the restoration phase, that's when we get the redness, the bump, the pus that comes out, that's actually the healing phase or the restoration phase of that feeling attacked or feeling soiled or disfigured conflict. Melanoma is actually that same program, just with a greater severity of intensity and duration. So when a melanoma appears, that is a sign that the skin has proliferated quite a bit because that active conflict phase has either gone on for a longer period of time or it's been of a pretty severe intensity, a pretty high intensity. And that's causing more cells to proliferate at this point. And when that would go into a healing phase, that's when there would be this fungi and bacteria that would help to break it down. Now, for a lot of people, when they get that mole that looks really suspicious, they go to the doctor, they get it cut off. They might never see the restoration phase occur because they've cut it off ahead of that time. But what's interesting to me about this article is that scientists are actually seeing that there is a relationship. This fungi is interacting with these melanoma cells. There are receptors on those cells that are talking back and forth to the fungi, and they're trying to figure out, well, what are they saying and what is the purpose of that? And in GNM, we would say that those fungi become active when they're actually in the restoration phase and they're ready to break down those extra cells that have been built up. So the important thing here in the GNM paradigm is that this tissue adaptation is meaningful, and that when we have this cell proliferation, it's because we have felt attacked or disfigured or soiled in a certain way, and our body is trying to help us by building us this shield. So thanks, and I hope this helps.